Namaskar and welcome to Diplomatic Dispatch, the show that keeps you up to date with current events and India's foreign relations. I'm your host, Vikas Swarup. On the 28th of June, Prime Minister Modi made a brief stopover at Abu Dhabi on his return from Munich for the G7 meeting, marking the fourth visit by him to the United Arab Emirates in 8 years. In fact, very few relationships have seen as much engagement as India's relationship with this Middle Eastern country in recent years. So what makes the UAE such an important partner for India? In this episode, we will delve into the details of India's strong and close ties with the UAE and how the two countries are working together in a wide range of sectors, from energy to agriculture. The UAE is located at the southeast end of the Arabian Peninsula. Founded on the 2nd of December 1971, it is actually a federation of 7 kingdoms: Abu Dhabi, Ajman, Dubai, Fujairah, Ras Al Khaimah, Sharjah and Al Quwain. The UAE has a population of 10.08 million, of which the expat population is 8.92 million or 89%. The 7 emirates are governed by an elected president. Following the death of his half-brother Sheikh Khalifa, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan was elected the third and current president of the UAE by the Federal Supreme Council on the 14th of May this year. India's ties with the UAE are founded on millennia-old cultural, economic and people-to-people interactions between the two regions. But the modern partnership between India and the UAE has really blossomed after Prime Minister Modi's first visit to the UAE in August 2015. When Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, the then Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, made his second visit to India in January 2017 as the chief guest at India's Republic Day celebrations, bilateral relations were upgraded to a comprehensive strategic partnership. The UAE leadership has taken great care of the Indian community and recognizes its contribution to the UAE's development story. UAE hosts around 3.5 million Indians, which is the largest population of Indians abroad. Trade and investment ties have also flourished. From a trade level of just $180 million per annum in the 1970s, India's current trade with UAE stands at $72.8 billion, making UAE India's third largest trading partner after the US and China and the second largest export destination. There is an estimated $18 billion of UAE investment in India, which makes it the 8th largest investor in India. Both sides finalized a comprehensive economic partnership agreement in a record time, and it was signed on the 18th of February this year during a virtual summit between Prime Minister Modi and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. India participated with one of the largest pavilions in Dubai Expo 2020, which was held from October 2021 to March 2022. UAE is one of the most important energy partners of India. In the last financial year, India imported crude oil, LPG, LNG and petroleum products worth more than $25 billion from UAE. Both sides have signed an MOU on climate action and are strengthening their cooperation in green hydrogen. The two countries are also working together in cyberspace, defense, maritime and road transport, SME, agriculture, manpower and controlling human trafficking. India has been supporting the food security requirements of UAE, including through exports of wheat after the shortages in the wake of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Both countries are also working on setting up an IIT in UAE, which was agreed during the virtual summit, and the first Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi, the BAPS Sri Swaminarayan Mandir, is now starting to rise from the desert. To learn more about this vital partnership, I am privileged to have with me two eminent guests. Joining us from Dubai is His Excellency Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem, Group Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of DP World and the Chairman of the Ports, Customs and Free Zone Corporation. One of Dubai's most visionary businessmen, he oversaw the rapid development of the Jebel Ali Free Zone into an unrivaled business park of more than 7,300 companies and led DP World's expansion internationally, which propelled it to the third largest operator in container terminal activities in the world, with 78 marine and inland terminals in 6 continents. And with me in the studio is Ambassador Navdeep Suri, a veteran diplomat who retired from the Indian Foreign Service in 2019. Having served as India's ambassador to Egypt, Australia and the UAE, he is a leading authority on the Middle East. Let me start with you, Ambassador Suri. When Prime Minister Modi visited the UAE for the first time in August 2015, it was the first visit to the UAE by an Indian Prime Minister in 34 years. And on his third visit to the UAE in August 2019, he was conferred with the UAE's highest award, the Order of Zayed. Why does Prime Minister Modi give so much personal attention to the UAE, and how has that transformed the relationship?
Well, I think the attention is given because UAE matters. This is a relatively small country that consistently punches way above its weight in regional politics, even in international politics. And what we have seen is that the fact that the Prime Minister has gone there for the 4th time, the fact that there's hardly any other country that he has visited 4 times during his tenure as Prime Minister, means that the leadership of both countries is deeply invested in this relationship. They have driven it. They have seen the outcomes out of it. And it is no wonder that whether it is a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement that we signed with UAE, our first free trade agreement, the comprehensive economic partnership agreement signed with UAE, the signaling that it puts forth is that this is truly special. And I will go there because of my personal friendship and warmth that I have with Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. As you mentioned, I had the privilege of being in Abu Dhabi for 2 of Prime Minister Modi's 4 visits. And I saw firsthand that the chemistry that they have is so genuine, so palpable. And again, I think the visuals that came out last night from Abu Dhabi, it was there for everyone to see in their embrace. So I think that India has realized, perhaps somewhat belatedly, that this was a country that was our natural friend and ally, and we neglected it for those 34 long years. And I think credit goes to Prime Minister Modi and the government for having really tried to make up for all the lost time. And the response that we have received is completely transformational. So if there's one relationship during the last 8 years of Prime Minister Modi's government that you can say has truly been transformed, then that's the India-UAE relationship.
Excellency, we heard from Ambassador Suri why the UAE is important to India. As chairman of Dubai's largest company, how do you see the relationship with India?
The relation between our 2 great nations is really shaped by the excellent relation that UAE enjoy with India, and the excellent relation, special relation that His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, our President, and Honorable Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi. The strong bonds between our countries and the deep connection between the 2 leaders have resulted in a stronger relation than ever we had with India. And we are really, as DP World, we're doing our share to participate in the growth of India. India is a great country that has a huge potential to grow. When you compare to China, India and China has the same population. But China has 100 million container with trade. India has between 15 to 20 million. We are participating to grow that because there is a huge potential. India has an opportunity. It's closer to all the consumer markets than anywhere. And we have all the ports in Africa and many of the countries that consume products. We have been investing in India because we believe in the viability and the growth of India. We believe in the policies of His Excellency Honorable Minister, who is really transforming India with his initiative made in India.
Now, Ambassador Suri, what was the primary purpose of Prime Minister Modi's brief stopover at Abu Dhabi this time?
Well, you would have seen the statement that has emerged out of the Ministry of External Affairs, saying that this was to offer condolences on the demise of His Highness Sheikh Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan and to congratulate His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed on his election as President of UAE. I believe that beyond that, if you look at the fact that the Vice President, Shri Venkaiah Naidu, had already visited Abu Dhabi on the 15th of May to offer the condolences of the government of India to the leadership of UAE. The fact that Dr. Jaishankar, Minister of External Affairs, had taken this unusual step of going personally to the UAE embassy in Delhi to sign the condolence book. So if you are looking at it purely in diplomatic terms of protocol, then those conditions or those requirements had already been met.
Yes.
But this is a relationship that has transcended the narrow confines of diplomatic protocol. And that's where the personal aspect of the relationship comes in. And that is why Prime Minister Modi makes that extra gesture of stopping over on his way from back from Germany, even if it is for a couple of hours, because he sees Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed as a brother, and he feels that this is an opportunity that he must personally go. But of course, beyond conveying the condolences at a personal level, a visit like this again provides you with an opportunity to review some of the key aspects of the bilateral relationship, to compare notes on what's happening in the region around us or in the world around us, and for the Prime Minister to meet not just with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, but also with Sheikh Tahnoon, who is the National Security Advisor, Sheikh Abdullah, who is the Minister for Foreign Affairs, Sheikh Ahmed, who is the Managing Director of Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. And I think when you have an exchange at this level, it sends a message down through the various facets of government that this relationship matters and the leadership is committed. So the rest of government moves in sync with that.
Excellency, India and the UAE signed the Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement within just 88 days of negotiations, which is a new record. How significant is the CEPA, and how do you expect it to boost trade and investment ties between India and the UAE?
It is a very important agreement, and I really admire His Highness Sheikh Mohammed Zayed and the Honorable Minister for making this agreement. Already India is the second trading partner of UAE after China. This agreement will help deeper penetration of Indian products in the UAE markets and in the GCC, as well as Africa and beyond. This agreement is unique as it motivates commercial flows between the two markets by removing tariffs, nearly 80% of goods, over 11 service sectors, and over 100 subsectors. This is good news for the traders, good news for the exporters in India. Through CEPA, both countries will work towards establishing a roadmap for a future-oriented partnership.
Ambassador Suri, India and the UAE came together with the US and Israel to form what was dubbed the West Asia Quad and has now been rechristened as I2U2. What is the importance of this new grouping, and how will it contribute to regional peace and stability?
First of all, I'm deeply upset that the name West Asia Quad that I had personally coined has been stolen, and now this I2U2 thing has been put in place. But I think what it really tells you is how much the geopolitics of the region has changed in less than the 2 years since the Abraham Accords were signed. For us, UAE and Israel are our two closest friends in the Middle East. And with the Abraham Accords, you saw normalization of relations between Israel and UAE. And I have to say, as somebody who's spent time in that region, the pace of normalization of ties between Israel and UAE has caught everybody by surprise. There are 3 flights a day from Dubai to Tel Aviv now, something unthinkable previously. What is happening is that it's created new opportunities, both at a trilateral and a quadrilateral level. At the trilateral level, I hear from my friends in UAE that Israeli tech companies are establishing themselves in Dubai with this ambition that can they marry Israeli tech with Emirati capital and the scale and market that India offers and create world-beating solutions. I think it's a tantalizing possibility. At the quadrilateral level, the fact that the United States has come on board with the 3 countries, initially they have only identified technology, trade, transport, healthcare, infrastructure, some of these areas. But remember, there's the other quad in the Indo-Pacific. And the two biggest members of both quads are US and India. So I think as we go forward, I see cross-pollination of ideas and best practices from the more mature quad in the Indo-Pacific to the new one that has emerged in West Asia. So I think that after the foreign ministers had their virtual meeting last October during Dr. Jaishankar's visit to Tel Aviv, the fact that a summit-level meeting is now being held during President Biden's visit to the region sends out a message that there's a new minilateral emerging in the region, and the fact that it is already meeting at the summit level will create a certain new awareness, a new fact in the region.
Now, Excellency, DP World is one of the largest investors in India. How is your partnership with the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund proceeding, and what are your future plans for India?
India and UAE, we are working toward increasing bilateral trade to 100 billion. DP World made significant investment in world leading ports and logistic infrastructure in the country and support this vision. It's our belief that India holds tremendous potential as a global leader in trade and manufacturing. Our partnership with IIF is a statement to this commitment. The joint investment platform we have created together will invest up to $3 billion toward development of Indian logistic infrastructure. The objective, of course, for us is to reduce the cost of logistics, improving transparency, reliability, eventually making Indian export globally more competitive. The more competitive it is, the more cargo we can move from our ports in India. We have set up NHAVA Shiva Business Park, free trade zone in Mumbai through this platform. Other parks too will be set up in Chennai and Cochin. NIF has been our strategic partner as well as our guide, and they share our enthusiasm and commitment to create world-class logistic infrastructure in India. We have already invested $1.8 billion in India through this platform.
Now, Excellency, one project that you are passionate about is the establishment of a dedicated India Mart in Jebel Ali Free Zone, which was agreed to during the virtual summit between the two leaders. How can this be a game changer for the small and medium enterprise sector in India?
We call it Bharat Mart.
Bharat
Bazaar project is a unique proposition that offers many advantages for Indian MSME, manufacturer and exporters. This sector of small industry and medium size are the ones that cannot go outside. It costs them so much. This is an amazing place where it is between Al Maktoum Airport, which is a big logistic airport and passenger, and the port. We are creating a mega free zone marketplace linked to the free zone port and provide traders, exporters, and manufacturers a gateway to the Middle East, North Africa, and Europe and beyond. Goods manufactured in India can showcase to the global buyers who visit Dubai to source clothing, apparel, shoes, electronic, and watches. The nature of the buyers, especially from Africa, are people who want to touch, they want to feel. They're not the people who will import over a website. And these are the people who want to attract. And those people will come from Iran, from Iraq, from India, into a place where they can find all the flight and all the shipping. So it's a great advantage. Bharat Bazaar will increase the speed to market for Indian goods, which will be stored duty-free in the Jebel Ali Free Zone and delivered to any port around the globe through an array of logistic services.
Oil and gas prices around the world have escalated following the war in Ukraine. How important is the role of UAE at this time, and how is it helping India's energy security?
So UAE is a critical partner in our quest for energy security. We not only import large quantities of oil from UAE, but what we have seen over the last few years is a transformation into an energy sector partnership with them, whether it is through the strategic petroleum reserves or through our stake in the lower Zakum basin. We've also seen that when 3-4 years back there was a sudden crunch in LNG supplies, and there was a fear that we may be running short for a duration of time. We approached UAE and they immediately stepped up with extra consignments that helped us tide through. So clearly, in times of need, we've seen that UAE responds very promptly to our requirements. But we've also shared our concern that the current level of high prices really hurt the Indian economy and the Indian consumer. And we ask UAE to use its good offices with OPEC and with OPEC Plus to try and maintain a degree of stability in oil prices so that there's a balance of interests between the producers and the consumers. And I think that is critical as we go forward. We make no secret of the fact that because of the situation caused by the Ukraine war, we have stepped forward and taken advantage of some of the deep discounts that the Russians are offering. And to be honest, it helps us mitigate some of the negative impact of those unreasonably high prices on the Indian economy. But I think we are also aware that this is not a normal state of affairs, that in the longer term, for our hydrocarbons requirement, there is no more competitive and reliable source than UAE and indeed the other countries in the Gulf. But because we are dealing with this current situation, I think it's also important that we, along with UAE and other countries, start a separate set of conversations that how do you bring Venezuelan oil back into the market? How do you bring some Iranian oil back into the market so that the current supply crunch that you are seeing, which is driving up the prices to unsustainable levels, that eases. Otherwise, I think we are going to end up in a lose-lose situation where high prices will drive inflation and they will result in economic contraction.
Correct. Now, Excellency, the UAE has also taken a keen interest in making investments in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. Over the past 1 year, 3 high-level business delegations from the UAE have visited the Union Territory, the last being on the 24th of April this year. You yourself were a part of that delegation and met Prime Minister Modi in Jammu. What attracts groups such as yours to J&K, and which sectors are you thinking of investing in?
We see tremendous potential in partnering with the Indian government towards creation logistic infrastructure in J&K. The development of infrastructure is the foundation and the most important economic growth that will follow. J&K has an industrial policy that offers attractive incentives along with a single window clearance mechanism. J&K represents a strong opportunity, and we are in discussion with the government of Jammu and Kashmir for an ICD in Jammu. We are also looking at developing free trade warehousing zones and matching infrastructure associated with special economic zones. We also want to provide the talent and the craftsmen for the SMEs in J&K, a global platform to drive our proposed trader market in UAE. Connection by rail will allow this cargo to move fast the ports. As you know, Jammu and Kashmir, far from the ports. So a logistic park is very important there to make sure perishable will stay in a good condition, and then sorting, packing, and sending. The medium and small industries is the biggest contributor to trade between our two countries, where J&K has existing opportunities. To support them, we have already created digital logistic platform that will improve their supply chain. We will soon offer trade finance solutions, which is something new. We had it that will allow them to basically be able to take advantage of cheaper cost of money when they import and export. And this will be a further advantage provided by DP World. We already have a license to provide trade finance. This will simplify definitely the supply chain requirement with many more logistic products to follow.
Ambassador Suri, final question. How is the 3.5 million strong Indian diaspora in the UAE an asset for India? And what is the government of India doing for its welfare?
Well, I think the Indian community in UAE is a real bridge between the two countries. And it's a bridge because you see it connect at multiple levels. At the top end, you have members of the Indian community who've been there 3 generations or 4 generations now, and really have deep roots in the country. Some of their business groups have become so successful that they are actually investing back in India in sectors like retail and construction, like the Lulu Group, like the Aster Healthcare Group, like Landmark, into areas like healthcare, retail, real estate, and so on. So you're seeing some of that. At the next level, pick any sector and key professionals are from India, including, if I dare say, in a DP Word itself, and I'm sure Dr. Sultan will bear witness to that. And then, of course, you have the large category of blue-collar workers whose contribution is not just to the building of UAE, and I've heard many Emirati leaders say that it is the Indians who have helped build the wonderful skyscrapers that you see in that country, but also the $20 billion of remittances that flow back into India every year to sustain a lot of lower and middle income families across multiple states. I think the Prime Minister sees the importance of that, and one of the first things that he did yesterday was he thanked Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed for the care and welfare that has been extended to the Indian community during the difficult period of COVID, because in UAE there was no discrimination. Everybody was vaccinated equally. And I think that really mattered. So I think going forward, there are areas like skills development where we can focus on. There is work already being done to align the skill development programs in India with job requirements in UAE, so that over a period of time, India can continue to remain, one, a preferred source of manpower for UAE, and second, that our workers, when they go there with certified skills, are able to get a wage premium, that they don't go in at the bottom of the ladder.
Correct. Well, thank you very much, Excellency Sultan Ahmed bin Sulayem and Ambassador Suri, for enlightening our viewers on the many dimensions of the India-UAE partnership. As Prime Minister Modi said during his virtual inauguration of the India Pavilion at Expo 2020 in Dubai, India offers maximum growth. Growth in scale, growth in ambition, growth in results. The same can be said of the strategic partnership between India and the UAE. It is set to grow in scale, in ambition, and in results. Thank you for watching Diplomatic Dispatch. Till we meet again next week, take care and goodbye.